Hi, I'm Richard Atkinson. This video will discuss examples of irregularly metrically shifted counterpoint in music by three of my favorite composers from different eras: Josquin, Haydn, and Nielsen. First, let me explain what I mean by irregularly metrically shifted counterpoint. Imitative counterpoint is by definition metrically shifted, usually at time intervals that place each entry at equivalent strong or weak beats of a measure. For example, the Ave Maria Virgo Serena motet by Josquin begins with canonic imitation in all four voices, with each entry coming in exactly 2 measures after the preceding one, each on a metrically strong beat. Unlike what we just heard, the remaining examples in this video are irregularly shifted, such that the original voice enters on a strong beat, and the imitative voice confusingly enters on a weak beat. I don't know of any better term to describe this, and I haven't read every counterpoint text that exists, so if anyone knows of a term, please let me know in the comments section. The first example occurs later in the same Josquin motet, when the music suddenly shifts to triple meter and the tenor canonically imitates the soprano. Notice in this case that the tenor enters just 1 beat after the soprano on the weak second beat of the measure, giving the passage an irregular, confusing rhythmic quality. Also notice that the original subject from the very beginning of the motet returns at the end of this passage, integrated into the canon. Haydn also frequently uses this technique, often with very humorous results. The trio of the Minuet and Trio third movement of his Opus 50 No. 1 quartet in B flat begins with this already comical A section. The 5-note motif that ends these 2 phrases consists of a leading tone pickup note slurred to the resolving downbeat note, followed by 3 repeated staccato notes. The B section begins with imitation of this motif. The second violin and viola begin with the non-shifted version, but the first violin answers 1 beat earlier than expected. The accented pickup notes, in neither case landing on the strong first beat of the measure, and the forzato markings further add to the rhythmic confusion. After the listener has likely forgotten where the downbeat lies, the final shifted entry of the motif, this time with all 4 parts rhythmically united, sounds like it's no longer rhythmically shifted, making the final extra note on the actual downbeat hilariously jarring and reorienting. The trio ends with a comical repeat of the A section, this time with even sillier alternating notes between the 2 violins. The next example is from the first movement of Haydn's Opus 71 No. 1 Quartet in B-flat. After an attention-grabbing introduction, the first violin plays the main theme. This is a monothematic sonata movement, so the second theme in the dominant key is just a variant of the first theme, played first by both violins and then by the second violin and viola. Now, the contrapuntal passage occurs, with the first violin playing the non-shifted theme and the second violin entering just one beat later on the weak second beat of the measure. Again, Haydn puts forzato markings on the entries to accentuate the confusing metric shift. The opening movement of Haydn's Opus 71 No. 2 Quartet in D has yet another example. First, listen to the second theme from the exposition section. I'm also including the brilliant passage that follows the theme, even though it has nothing to do with the topic of this video. In the recapitulation section, after the second violin begins playing the theme, the first violin enters on the strong third beat of the measure, with imitation from the second violin and viola beginning on the weak fourth beat, while the cello plays this long dominant pedal tone. Again, I'm including the brilliant first violin passage that follows this counterpoint, just for the sake of including it. The last Haydn example for this video is from the first movement of the Opus 71 No. 3 Quartet in E-flat. It begins with this startling multi-stop chord, followed by the main theme. This is also a monothematic movement, so the second theme is just a variant of the first. In this case, it enters in the viola part on the strong first beat of the measure and is imitated by the violins on the weak second beat. A second example occurs in the recapitulation section when, over the cello's dominant pedal tone, the first violin plays the theme on the strong beat, while the second violin and viola enter on the weak beat. was originally going to include my favorite example of Haydn's use of this technique from the finale of his C major quartet, Opus 64 No. 1, but I decided this entire movement deserved its own separate video, which you can also watch by going to my channel or by finding the link in the description below this video. The last example for this video is from the final movement of Carl Nielsen's monumental Fifth Symphony. The middle of this movement consists of two large fugues, the first wild and frenetic, and the second serene and transfigured. The wild fugue is a giant crescendo, beginning quietly with this almost banal subject in triple meter, played by the first violins. This fugue has much to analyze, but I'll only concentrate on the topic of this video. After the fugal exposition, the horns and lower strings enter with the subject, with the bassoons imitating the beginning portion of the subject, but shifted so that the normal downbeat now falls on the weak third beat of the measure. This is prelude to the spectacularly confusing, irregularly metrically shifted entry of the entire subject that occurs when the flutes and first violins enter, again on the wrong beat, imitating the normal entries in the oboes and second violins. The fugue continues to crescendo and become more frenzied, with entries of the subject in the brass, followed by a shifted partial timpani entrance. This occurs again, this time with the timpani playing the two notes confusingly backward, in addition to being metrically shifted. Finally, the feverish zenith of the fugue occurs with shifted brass entries of most of the subject, this time a measure closer than previously, while the timpani add to the mayhem by simultaneously playing the two notes with a duple rhythm. Now listen to the entirety of this immense fugue.